Robert McNamara was the Secretary of Defense during the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. He was the man responsible for the prosecution of the Vietnam War. Now, McNamara was famous. He previously had been the president of the Ford Motor Company, and he came from MIT, and the whole approach that he had was efficiency. He was one of the first efficiency experts. The whole notion he had was to use analytical tools to solve problems. He believed that if you had enough data about any given situation, any given problem, you could solve any problem. So there's this story about McNamara, and it's pretty interesting. The story goes that in 1968, he wanted to understand when the Vietnam War was going to be won, because so many men and so much money had been spent on the war, so much equipment had been sent to Vietnam. So by 68, he wanted to know, when is this going to end, right? So he gathered all of the data, and well, not he himself, but his minions gathered all of the data on the Vietnam War, and they plugged it into this computer. They plugged it into this computer to solve the question, when will the war be won? Now, of course, the computers in 1968 weren't that efficient, so it took a little while. It took a little while for the computer to come up with the answer, but the computer did come up with the answer. Yeah, that computer in 1968 solved the problem of when the war would be won. And you know what the answer was? The answer was that the war would be won on March 7th, 1965. That's a joke, of course, but the whole point is very serious. See, McNamara was very convinced that if he had enough information, he would be able to win the war. In point of fact, one of the things that a lot of military officers said at the time was that the Department of Defense was so interested in gathering data, pointless data, that they spent an enormous amount of time gathering this useless data as opposed to actually winning the war. Now, why did I start off this video with a joke? Well, very simple, because it's a very true point that a lot of times in your urge to understand every little detail, in your urge to gather as much information as possible in order to make the right decision, you literally get lost amid all the data, and the data will not help you. More to the point, a lot of times the result of something will not be data dependent. A lot of times the triumph or failure of somebody or something, maybe you, will depend not on some quantitative issue, but rather a qualitative issue. Because a lot of times, it's not how much you have, but how good you have it, how good you are at it. Think about the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. They had fewer men, they had fewer weapons, they had less of everything, and yet they won the war. Why did they win the war? Because they believed it. It didn't matter. The numbers did not matter. What mattered was the spirit of the men. The North Vietnamese wanted to win more badly than anybody else, and that's why they won. And they took on enormous sacrifices, huge losses in order to win, and they were willing to pay that price to win because they wanted it more. Now, a lot of times you're going to find that it's smart to use quantitative methods to figure out which path to take. It's smart to use quantitative methods to figure out whether something will be successful or not. But you're going to find a lot of times in your life that the quantitative data is not the most important data. The most important data, if you will, is looking into your heart, or looking into the hearts of your friends or opponents or whoever it is who will decide a situation, and figuring out who wants it more. Because in my own experience, I've noticed that who wants it more is the real quantitative question. A lot of times, the man who wants it more will win, no matter the obstacles. Now, this has been true in my own case a lot of times. A lot of times I've wanted something more, and because I've wanted something more, I've not locked myself into one path or another path. I've just tried everything in order to succeed. And those times in my life were successful. The flip side is that sometimes when I was most calculating, when I was most careful in terms of analyzing a situation, I often has not failed, because I relied too much on the quantitative as opposed to the qualitative. Or said a different way, sometimes I allowed too much reason and logic to influence my path instead of giving it my all insofar as my heart is concerned. Now, I'm not arguing for you to only follow your heart. No, that's stupid, okay? I mean, like, for instance, in my own case, yeah, I would have loved to have been like, I don't know, a champion tennis player, but, you know, I don't have that ability. Yeah, I mean, no matter how much I wanted to be a champion tennis player or a champion skier or whatever the fuck, right? I'd never do it because I am lousy at sports, okay? I mean, you cannot be blind to reality, is my point. But that said, you cannot allow the numbers game or calculation to blind you. It's easy to fall into that trap. A lot of guys do it. A lot of guys who are smarter than you and me. Guys, well, like McNamara. McNamara fell into the trap of thinking that if he had all the numbers, he could just stick all the numbers into a computer or analyze it enough, massage the numbers enough that he'd come up with the answer. And the answer would, you know, solve all his problems. He figured that, you know, if he put all the data into that computer in 1968, he'd find the answer. And of course, the answer was wrong. Now, of course, the real issue is, when can you rely on quantitative analysis? And when should you rely on qualitative analysis? And of course, it's impossible to figure that question out. See, that's the point, that's the problem. You cannot figure out when one method is better than the other method. There's no law or algorithm or rule of thumb or anything that can help you, okay? I mean, if there were such a thing, then nobody would ever make bad decisions, now would they? The best rule I can come up with is to sort of like use quantitative analysis at the beginning of the problem. Use it and try to figure it out. But then once you're into the situation, once you've taken one path, then once you are on that path, then you have to start relying more on qualitative analysis. You have to realize, you know, what's really possible irrespective of the numbers. The numbers help you at the beginning, but they won't get you to the end. That at least has been my experience. I'm very tentative in telling you any kind of guide insofar as this is concerned, because unfortunately it's different. It's different in every situation, and in every situation you have to figure it out on your own. And sometimes, many times, something that worked in one situation will not work in another. And I suppose the best thing I can do in this video is to tell you that you have to pay attention to both sides, because it's really not a either-or situation. It's really not quantitative versus qualitative. You have to sort of like figure out a happy balance between the two, a happy medium. Because quantitative analysis has its place, but qualitative analysis is essential. At the same time, thinking that only the qualitative is important will lead you to ruin, because there's a lot of things that we want out of life that are simply just not achievable, okay? They're not achievable because the numbers are not on our side, right? I mean, like, for instance, you know, I might hate some country, some random country, you know, and decide, oh, you know, I want to invade this random country, but I'm just one guy. How long do you think an army of one is going to last, even against a pipsqueak country? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Qualitative alone is not enough. But don't be foolish enough to rely only on the quantitative, especially when it looks like the numbers are on your side. Because a lot of times, when you think that the numbers are on your side, that's when you lose. The Americans in the Vietnam War had the numbers on their side. They had everything going for them. They should have won. That computer in 1968 that said that the Vietnam War should have been won on March 7th, 1965, that computer was right. That's the point. That's the point of the joke. And it's the point that you should, you know, have seared into your head, that you might have the numbers, but if you don't have the will, if you don't have the drive to go all the way, then you're going to lose, no matter how much is on your side. This video is not getting to some like climactic moment. I feel like I'm sort of like fucking up this video, but okay, I'm fucking it up. But go and study Robert McNamara's life and his career. It's shocking. McNamara is, I think, one of the great tragic figures in American history, because he was not a bad man. He wanted what was best for his own country and for Vietnam. He truly was a decent guy, but he got blinded by the numbers. It's remarkable. It's remarkable because he was a man who was so brilliant. He was 10 times smarter than you and me together. Yeah? He was so brilliant and he so fucked it up. And there's a brilliant documentary by Errol Morris where McNamara is interviewed. It's called The Fog of War. You should watch it. Watch it very carefully. And learn. Learn from McNamara. Learn about McNamara's fallacy that I've described here in this video. Understand it because like I say, when you get to be good at something, that's when you start fucking up. See? It's, you know, you never really fail when you're a failure. You know, when you're a failure and you're trying, you're just trying. You're trying to get out of failure. It's when you succeed, when you're successful, when you're flying high, that's when arrogance can kill you. That's when McNamara's fallacy can kill you. I hope this helps.